Any day now, we'll be in the thick of the primary season. They start earlier and earlier, and we are right on the precipice right now. And if Bernie Sanders runs, I think it's pretty obvious that shortly thereafter, the myth of the Bernie bro will return. That is this idea that despite all of the evidence, Bernie Sanders has one type of supporter, and that is white males. And anything other than that, he has issues with, doesn't really appeal to those people, doesn't care about those people. And I was disappointed to see in a recent write-up in an article in the New York Times, this was simply thrown out as a fact, either through malice or possibly laziness. Here's the section from the New York Times. Since running an unexpectedly competitive race against Mrs. Clinton and becoming a global sensation on the political left, Mr. Sanders has exulted as the Democratic mainstream embraced central elements of his message, including his call for universal health care. But he has done little to broaden his political circle and has struggled to expand his appeal beyond his base of primarily white supporters. So that is the sort of claim that obviously there is data for. How many polling outfits are there in America operating on a constant basis, doing tracking polls? And back during the primary, you could look into that information. And either he didn't, or he did and didn't want to post the information, but I did it for him. I went and I plucked a couple of different polls. You can go and you can find far more. But first of all, to each of those parts of that, the white thing and the male thing. Well, in a Quinnipiac poll, women had a 50% favorability rating for Bernie Sanders, men a 46%. So the women actually liked Bernie more than the men. The unfavorables are even, it's a larger gap there. So if anything, he's got trouble appealing to anything other than his core female demographic, actually. On the racial issue, let's go to that same Quinnipiac poll. You see there his favorability ratings for Black Americans, 70%, Latinos, 55%, whites, just 43%. That's an interesting factoid there that you'd probably want to include in your analysis of his racial appeal across different demographic groups. And look, if we want to throw into the mix as well, we have this next set. His favorability overall with Democrats, 76%. So the overall claim that he appeals to only one type of Democrat is somewhat undercut by the fact that he has a 76% favorability rating and only an 11% unfavorability rating. So where are all the huge groups of Democrats that just hate Bernie Sanders? So that's the Quinnipiac poll, but I don't want you to think that I've gone and I've found just one poll that has some sort of outlier. So let's bring up a Gallup poll. We can take a look at this as well. You can see there his support amongst white Americans, 49% favorability, non-whites, 64%. And his unfavorability ratings for whites is more than twice as high as for non-whites. That is a gigantic difference there, although in a direction that completely undercuts what Jonathan Martin in the New York Times was actually saying. But you might think, well, that's from September of this year. It's just another data point. Let's go to another one. We can bring this up, a Harvard-Harris poll. And you can see there, again, women supporting him at higher rates than men, African Americans at a gigantic percentage higher than white Americans. That's like a 40% boost over his white favorability numbers. And Asian Americans and Hispanic Americans there in the middle as well. And overall, among Democrats, 80% overall favorability. So look, I hope that it's just, hey, I'm thinking back to the 2016 election and I remember it being said that he had issues with those people, and I don't have time to actually look into it. But there's gonna be a lot of people trying to spread that myth in the future when he runs again, if he runs again, and all of the survey data conclusively, repeatedly undercuts it.